Hello, thanks for coming in today.
Of course. Hi, guys. How's everybody?
It's so great to have the chance to sit and chat with you today. I actually am a Boston native and didn't take too much time for me to get over here, but you traveled in from New York, right? Are you from New York?
I did. I am actually, I live in New York. I grew up here, so it is nice to be home. I had dinner with my mother last night.
Lovely.
I then met some of these people at the bar at the Lenox Hotel afterwards. I had an amazing Boston moment where I was sitting at the window at the bar and a drunk guy was in a fight with another drunk guy in front of a Dunkin' Donuts wearing a Red Sox hoodie. And I was like, oh my God, I am home. Oh, I've missed it so much. And then I got to explain mass holes to a huge group of people who weren't from there. It was like, oh, so nice being home. Raise my mic? Okay, thanks.
Nice. Well, that's great. I mean, quintessential Boston. I definitely, appreciate that the locality of the New Balance brand and bringing people back home. It's awesome, and it's so great to have you here to speak to the marketing of Foot Locker. I do have a couple of questions
Please.
that aren't related to drunken fights, if that's all right.
It's pretty much all I know, so we're in trouble.
Perfect. One thing that I wanted to start off with is Foot Locker is such an incredibly unique, innovative organization that's always changing and staying top of mind in today's market. How have you been able to maintain that relevance? And as a result, how has the portfolio started to change and evolve over time?
Yeah, it's totally easy. No, it's not. I guess there's 3 points that I would probably bring up, and they blend into each other. I think first of all, I'm a huge believer in self-awareness, and both personal self-awareness and what I have the ability to do and don't, and also the company. And Foot Locker Inc. is a company that has traditionally had a lot of self-awareness, and I think that's been an incredibly important, because the second point there is that they've been committed to evolving the portfolio for forever. Really, we're actually we're almost a 50-year-old company. So there's some advantages and disadvantages to being a legacy company, and the portfolio has dramatically changed over those 50 years, much of which is from different acquisitions, and some of which we still have today, and some of which we don't, which is a sign of a company evolving. So a lot of people don't realize, but so Foot Locker Inc. owns, and this is sort of the balance of having your name on the door, and also being the biggest company within the portfolio. So Foot Locker Inc. owns Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, Champs, East Bay. We just acquired a company called WSS, which is out of LA, a Japanese company called Atmos, which has 3 stores in America. We own a printing facility called Team Edition in Florida, so we actually manufacture a lot of the apparel that we sell, even from the brands that we sell it. It's an amazing secret weapon. It allows us to sort of test some graphics out and then be back into thousands of stores within 10 days if it does well. So there's a lot of things that we've picked up in acquisition over the years. We own another retailer called Sidestep in Europe, and then we actually have launched 8 controlled brands or owned brands in the last couple of years. So that'll give you an idea of just the need to continually evolve the portfolio.
Definitely. That's great. It's grown so much.
It has. There's also some places that it shrank. Honestly, I think that again, it's real. You got to have the self-awareness to understand where you need to put emphasis and where you need to maybe move off your prioritization. I would say the third piece, and it's fair to mention, is that I feel very fortunate, and I think a lot of people do. We work in a very passionate subject of sneakers that allows sort of youth culture to evolve with it. There's incredible creators. I'm wearing a New Balance collaboration from a designer that not that many people know about, named Louis de Guzman, LDG, and it allows his story to be told, and he's new and he's young and he's coming up, and it allows us to do serious things where we did adaptable shoes with Diadora for Autism Awareness Month, and then it allows us to do really fun, quirky things, like we had a ridiculous release with Crocs last week for Cinnamon Toast Crunch licensed Crocs. So it's one of those industries that like people are so passionate about it, and it lets you float in fun ideas in and out all the time.
That's so great. It's great that you're able to identify kind of the areas that are interesting to people and also highlight people coming up in their own space, like the unique designers, people that are in different areas, like in autism awareness. That's so wonderful that you're able to encompass all of that.
No, I feel fortunate to work in the industry. I really do.
Definitely. One of the things that I think has been a prioritization that you've mentioned before that maintains the relevance and maintains the ability to really identify these areas of interest for the consumers is data. I know that you've mentioned that customer development is your number one priority before in the past. How do you utilize the consumer data in a way that's most impactful for both the business but also, to your point, to the customer?
Yeah, I mean, it actually is. It is actually the most important piece of my job today. Mm-hmm. And I think we all, probably everybody in this room has said in one meeting or another that we always that we're customer obsessed, put the customer in the center of our business. I mean, that's a little bit almost cliche, but also true. And part of my job. So first of all, just a quick background. We identify about 65% of the transactions that we sell. So we have a very high percentage of the people that we know that we're selling to. So part of my job is to make sure that everybody in the organization has access to that customer information in terms of whatever they do, and that we're all pulling in the same direction. So we have one overarching scoring against customer health, but then the reporting or the dashboarding is different based on what you do from a department perspective. Which is incredibly important, because the goal for all of us is to bring more customers in and to obviously sell more to our current consumer base. So we have that ability, and it's a super hard challenge to do that. We're like every other company and a lot of legacy companies where we've sort of gone from a data swamp to a data lake, and part of my job is making sure that information is much more accessible. It's available, but how it becomes accessible to the rest of the company is an ongoing journey.
For sure. I've heard lots of data pond, data lake, data swamp.
We're probably more like a data pond. We're like on transition to the data lake. We're past swamp, but
at least we're past swamp.
Yeah.
That's great, and it's great that the data is prioritized to keep that consumer coming back. One of the things that's actually changed recently quite a bit when we're talking about the consumer and the customer is their journey. It's definitely not what most people thought it was going to be. A lot of people really seem to be browsing in the store, but then going directly to the product online to purchase it. So how has that kind of new customer journey surprised you, and how has it changed the way that you market?
Yeah, well, and sometimes it's actually the opposite of that. So, so 4 out of every 5 of our transactions start on someone's phone, but they actually end up in a store.
Oh, really?
So still about 20+%, or in the low 20% of our transactions are still in store. Obviously, COVID changed that a little bit. There was a time where 100% of our transactions were online for a little while, but and that percentage definitely went up. So 90% of our online traffic is through the phone. So, I mean, the only people who ever look at the desktop is like some of the older merchants in my organization who then bust my chops about something that they're not seeing. And I'm like, you're looking at the computer? Nobody's looking at the computer. And I think that the piece that is totally true is I think that we all sort of misread what endless aisle was. So I think we thought that the endless aisle was online because there was no stock room, right? There was no storage. It turns out that really the choice actually happens in store. So the traditional way and by the way, a lot of people walk into store and say, I want this. Mm-hmm. But then you're in the store environment and you're surrounded by choice and amazing product and amazing stories and that may or may not play better into your self-expression than the thing that you thought you were going to come in and buy, or maybe you're buying both. So I think that it actually turns out that the breadth of things that are being sold is actually more predominant in store. And the way that the online shopping environment has really worked is, and this is not a surprise, I mean, you're being influenced by whatever, TikTok, Instagram, your friend, whoever it is, and most of the time the traffic is coming through Google. Or through internal search, right? So they really, like, I want this, I get this. And that's not to say that we can't do a better job in that consumer journey to maybe get the person to that product a little easier, but also find ways within that journey to give them more options without over-optioning them where they abandon, because that is, over-optioning is actually a real thing. So those are the types of things that we all have to think about. But and then I'll even bring up the Crocs example. By the way, we have 3 more cereals. If you're interested, there's Trix, Cocoa Puffs, and Honey Nut Cheerios, which I can't believe I almost forgot. How could I forget Honey Nut Cheerios? But it was really interesting. The Cinnamon Toast Crunch Crocs were the #1 branded search term that brought people to any one of our banners that held the product this weekend. So on Google this past week. So that'll give you an idea how important sort of the demand creation and the idea is for a consumer to really engage with your brand or shop.
Wow. Well, I think now I just want cereal. So. But that is really remarkable to think that something like that can drive so much traffic.
Yeah, and sales, by the way. We sold a whole lot of cereal shoes.
Wow.
They're sold out.
They're sold out now?
They sold out on the day.
Wow, that is really cool. I guess that would kind of lead to my next question, though. Like, how would you pivot? Like, how does this pivot that you've seen, the role of marketing as a whole transition, like, change over time as well? Like, just the whole marketing transition overall?
Oh, see, I'm passionate about this subject.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I'm an advocate for my position, for my and probably a lot of people in here's career, and not only that, for the aspiration of where a marketer can go. I think the marketing field has gained some credibility in the past couple of years. Yeah. Where I thought there were some tough moments there for a little while, and it's really important to me, and I talk about it a lot, that myself, others, and as I'm sort of working with people people on my team, sometimes younger, it's really important to me that people look at our field and our jobs as revenue drivers and business partners and strategists, and there are always going to be people who are going to want to put this in a creative sort of box. Sometimes, maybe potentially, because it's easier for somebody who's had a position in a certain other field to do that, to keep that marketing world over there. But the truth is that if I look at what I don't have many marketing superpowers, but if I did have one, it would probably be the ability to take a whole lot of unstructured thought from people and process it pretty quickly into a buttoned up narrative and strategy, and getting from point A to point Z, and making it translate into revenue. So I think that that's a really important. I just did a pretty significant reorganization of the marketing world at Foot Inc. and our traditional brand teams no longer have the word brand in their titles. The term brand is gone. Those teams also had digital marketers. The term digital is gone. And and it's just silly to think about, like, how is any marketer at this point not thinking about both digital and brand? I think that we there's just some little things there that I think the industry needs to do to sort of fix or keep progressing the ongoing reputation. It's funny because the new term is CMO plus, which is like so insulting, but yet I added it to my LinkedIn. So I'm like, I'm my own worst enemy. But and I think it's just so funny. It's like, oh no, you're a CMO, but you also are analytical, or you're also customer data focused, or you're also a business driver, or you can do performance marketing, and it's just So it's but again, it's part of the journey of people understanding the roles.
Roles, definitely, plural.
Plus. CMO plus.
CMO Plus, the extended, it's like the extended subscription to CMO. Well, I think that would be a great place to pause. I'd like to just check in with the audience and see if this is a really unique opportunity to have this intimate setting with Jed. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Sure. You, yeah.
Oh, this could go so many places.
You guys obviously have been a global force in the wholesale marketplace.
Yeah.
You're now creating a lot more direct-to-consumer brands, not only for margin but also for brand building. Can you talk a little bit, like as much as you're allowed to,
Yeah.
like what the vision of the brands are and how they're going to be distinctive from traditional brands in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, great question, Chris. I think first of all, it speaks to the need to take a little bit more control of our own destiny and diversify and makes it's I think everybody I of course the brands we work with want to sell more to their own DTC. I mean, I would too, right? I mean, much better margin, you own the customer relationship. There's tremendous advantage there. I think that I think that our partnerships that we have with the brands, everybody from you to Nike to Adidas to Crocs to a lot of new brands in the space too, which is amazing, because there's not a lot of new brands in this. There has not been a lot of new brands in this space in the last 20, 30 years, and there finally are some people breaking through. I think the relationships that we have are amazing, but I think we think that there are some gaps. And I think that one of the things that we have the ability to do is bring sort of sneaker culture and create sneaker culture for the sort of the masses, right? For the people, and whether that's access to certain talents like Melody Asani, who we built her line, and she's amazing. And there's a gap in women's sneaker culture. Or Don C has Just Don, a line called Just Don, but it's $450 pair of shorts, basketball shorts. And so we have a line that's still not cheap, by the way, but it's we started a line with him called All City that brings what he does down a level, and it's been doing great. And then I think from a performance perspective too, there's some places that we think that that there are some gap opportunities. So it's really about filling gaps and diversifying in that way. I think that the interesting piece will be if footwear becomes a part of it at some point, and then also even what does I dare I say metaverse, because but obviously there's going to be I don't think we know what that looks like, but there's going to be a business there, and the interesting thing there is it's all IP related. So if we were gonna buy land in a metaverse and sell product to avatars, what are we going to sell? Because I think we have to have the self-awareness to think about the ways that we need to evolve for the direction that the world is going and our partners and competitors are going.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sure. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Allison, for facilitating an amazing conversation.
I think I was supposed to say that, but cool. Thanks, Allison.
No problem.
Thank you, Jen, for sharing
Of course.
incredible insight. So obviously your team is incredibly close to culture, and you're identifying these amazing brand partnerships. What would you say? What would you say the secret is to identifying these fandoms? And what are the tools your team or your structure is utilizing to stay so close to culture and be on top of these incredible fandoms?
So I'll give a couple answers to that, because there's sort of the formal and informal, and I would say maybe the technological and the non-technological. So first of all, what I would tell you from a formality perspective is I am a big believer in things, in entities, to make them formal. So and Chris is probably aware of this, and some other people, we sort of preach to the idea of, for a while, of like concept in footwear in the world, and concepts over colorways. Like, people wanted to buy into ideas, not necessarily inspired by ideas, right? So like this shoe was designed by Luis de Guzman. That means something to somebody, right? An amazing Hispanic up-and-coming designer. It's more than just the multicolor shoe, right? By the way, I'm a size 13. I should never wear a multicolor shoe, but anyway. And so, to do that, we launched a product concepts team. Because I felt the need that if we were going to do that, it had to be formalized. And I took some of our top buyers and merchants and top marketers, and I created a team, and they sat under me, not our product team. They sat under me, and they worked with every single one of our. And again, we didn't get everything right at all, by the way, at all. But in fact, they don't sit under me anymore. The team got much larger, and they worked with all of our different units, all of our different brand partners, and our internal stakeholders to create. And you know what happened when we created that team? Our brand partners created a team to match it. And all of a sudden, you had programs that had names in whether it was called Gel with Nike or LEC with Adidas, and so on. That matched our team with an output. So that's the formality. And then that team worked on scale. And then we launched an incubator team called Greenhouse, which has also had its ups and downs. It's a learning. You got to be willing to miss. Got to be willing to be wrong. I have learned that, and I have no problem being wrong, admitting I'm wrong, and that's part of the self-awareness game. And that team was meant to be much closer to culture. And they had a name, they had a team, they had a budget. And then the third piece there, I would say, is that we are a team that is built on consumer insights and do have a lot of knowledge of our consumer. And so that's not only making sure that we have the right people and the right pipeline from people in stores, our associates. So we have a field app called Lace Up that is a communication device with 30,000 different associates from all over the globe in different markets, and it's a way to not only for us to talk to them, and there's some gamified ways, but them to talk back to us. It's been incredibly useful. Our CEO is in the top 10 user base, so that'll tell you how adopted it is. I'm not, and then the other piece I would say is that we have a lot of companies do, but we have an online consumer panel that has 6,000 different people in it in America, and we launched it in Europe and in Asia, APAC too. And it comes right from our data swamp lake, and so we can segment that out, and we do a whole lot of formal and informal communication against that. Even to the point, and I'm not even kidding you, the way we got to the cereals that we did. By the way, if you guys were wondering, just so we're all on the same page, because I know what I would think of Lucky Charms was off the table for us. They were doing it anyway, because obviously we all know that Lucky Charms would be the number one cereal. But so we didn't have that as an option. So our team literally ranked that consumer panel the way we got to the 4 cereals. And by the way, the number one was off by far Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I never would have known that. It's so stupid and so silly, but like, why wouldn't you communicate? Again, I wouldn't know. I haven't had a bowl of cereal in a really long time. So, I think that, again, there's formal and informal ways, but I think the big thing I take away is that the formality piece of it is important to me. Like, create an entity, create a name, brand it, create accountabilities against it, and create people against it, and people will know you mean business.
That's such a great answer.
That was the most incredible answer.
Right?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
That was great.
By the way, I just wanted to say thank you for Allison for moderating, and thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you. Any other? Oh, sure, in the back up there.
Hi, Tracy. Yeah, it's been a super interesting journey. It really has. I think that we are, I think, so first of all, Foot Locker Inc. is a super high value organization. I would say that to anybody. I've said it a million times. If you know our CEO, and I actually had him speak at a conference on Tuesday. I don't even know what day it is today, Wednesday. But and the amount of people who came up to me and told me they had CEO envy afterwards was amazing, because he's just an amazing human being. And doesn't know. I think nobody knows a lot of the things that he's done. Like, he was adamant about paying every single associate the entire time during COVID. There was no negotiation, zero. And we didn't furlough one human, not one store associate, nobody. And I don't know anybody else like that. And there was actually a moment where some people proposed, like, listen, it could go on a little while, and like put a proposal in front of him, didn't even look at it, wouldn't do it, nothing. Wow. Wouldn't do it. And somebody, so I think, first of all, that's like, it's a super high value organization, and I think we've actually struggled to find our purpose voice over the past years. I think we've always done a lot of good things, but never really, I think it's been hard to find our voice. And in the past, I think 3 years, and look, we are a company that has our field organization is 80% people of color. Our customer base is 60% non-white. Also, our home office our corporate office is 50-50. And so, like, it was such a meaningful past few years that it just became a bigger piece of our organization. And we had already launched many employee resource groups that have become really strong in our organization. So, like, those ERGs, again, entities, things, they have names. I'm the executive sponsor of the Laced Differently, like, ERG, a name, real. It has a budget. These again, so and so, for us, when it took us a minute to figure out, I think, what purpose meant to us, and then we did launch a formal program called LEAD, which is Leading Education and Economic Development, and it was a $200 million 5-year commitment to the Black communities that we are in, and again, a name, a team, a leader, an entity, formality. We have update meetings all the time, and there's accountability, and I think that's become a really big piece of us. I will say, though, that it's a part of us. It is not all of us. We are, and I stress that because I don't want us to be an ultra serious company. I think purpose is really important to youth culture, and values are incredibly important part of our company, and I truly believe it's a differentiator for us. But like I said, we work in a really fun space, and the world is ultra serious, and we don't always have to be. Like I said, Cinnamon Toast Crunch Crocs. So.
That's such a great answer, and that's definitely something that I personally have noticed about Foot Locker from the top down as well, is that culture of, empathy and kindness and being human. You're not just an executive at Foot Locker. You're someone that got dinner with your mom last night, and
I tell everybody my mom's a shrink, so I am like the office crier. Like, people come to me, it's amazing. People are like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "My mom's a shrink. People tell me everything, you guys."
That's so great. But yeah, I've seen it across the board, and I think that the silver lining to COVID too has been that we have stripped those barriers. We're not just corporate people doing business with one another. You're not just selling sneakers for a profit. You're really opening up the gates to expanding to people that, might be from a lesser area, or have developmental problems, or aren't as well known of an artist, and highlighting and embracing these. And it's just so eminent across the board, and it's such a wonderful space and a wonderful organization.
Oh, and by the way, I hope that will be where we go in the future. I think we'll double down. I really believe that. I think we'll double down on the culture and the fun, and sometimes, once in a while, the serious. But I do believe that that's part of our role, is to create it, to amplify it, to share these amazing stories that companies like New Balance is pumping out by the minute. And so, I believe that's why we're here.
That's so great. One last question I have for you, Jed. If you could pick anybody, past, present, alive, dead, anyone that you felt such a connection with that you'd want to walk a day in their shoes, no pun intended, who would that be and why?
Well, you stole this question because but I like the question. So I just recently got asked this, so I had to put a lot of thought to this. So again, I in my old age, I've sort of put a lot more perspective into my life, and so I have a little boy. He's 10 years old. It's not an accident that I am the executive sponsor on the special needs ERG. I have a 10-year-old little boy who has Down syndrome. He is autistic. He only hears out of one ear. So obviously language is he has his own. He's not nonverbal, but he has sort of Jonah language. And by the way, I've told Chris this before and Tracy this. So he only wears New Balance. I swear to God, he only wears New Balance. Actually, that's true. He only wears New Balance and Crocs, by the way. But they do have New Balance has an amazing lock. I told them that they have a lock on the Down syndrome community. It's amazing. He's sort of this like ball of love. He really is. He's like but he's like bopping all around and singing jingle bells during the winter, the spring, and happy birthday to everybody. And and so it's funny. Like I would, it's hard to sometimes know what's going through that head, and both sometimes when he's frustrated and he can't communicate it, or when he's happy and I'm just like, what is going through that brain? So my answer to that was and is I would love to sort of bop around in his shoes for a day.
That's such a sweet answer.
Well, it is true.
I know, and I don't think that anyone could have a better answer to that. And as a mother myself, I really respect and appreciate that.
Well,
That's
you.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for
you.
taking the
Thank
time
you,
to be
guys.
here today.
Appreciate
it was
it.
such an opportunity to
Appreciate
speak with
it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.